Hi, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Spring practice is kind of an extension of, how we prepare and how we get, to the next step of our process. As you know, the preparation of our football team began back, when I arrived here on campus early in December. If we kind of look back on that, that was much more kind of inside out, evaluating staff and the needs that we thought that were immediate, those that we took some time and making decisions on personnel and staff and support staff, players, and at that time, when we look back on it, a lot of those decisions, are where we are today with over 40 new staff members and support staff, coaches, everybody that touches the team is part of this overall total preparation. And certainly, I know we all, are focused on the first practice and getting out there and, who's competing for what job. But I just want to give you the perspective of, the head coach and what I'm looking at every single day. And, it's really about this total preparation of, starting with, how do we physically prepare our football team? And, and it's not just in the weight room. It's been about their nutrition and how they've been eating. It's been, getting the right amount of sleep. It's been certainly the training, the conditioning element, but the physical preparation has been different for them. I'm not here to say that we're better than what's been done in the past, but it's been an adjustment for our football team. And what I can tell you is that I've been really pleased with the consistency of approach. Guys are certainly in a new environment with new standards, and like anybody else, it's been hard. It's not been easy for them. We're all creatures of habit, and the habits that they had were different. And so there's been a give and take, a push and a pull, if you will. But I got to tell you, as I stand here before you, I don't know that I would be saying this, is that I'm really excited about the overall group in terms of their grit. They want to do this. This is important to them. Even though it hasn't been easy on a day-to-day basis. I'll give you an example. We ask them to fill out a personal wellness questionnaire on their phone every day, because we're creating habits. Good habits lead to good things happening in everything they do, in the classroom, in the community, on the football field. And, at the other place I was at, it took a while for us to get that done. We went 7 days, 7 consecutive days where we had every guy filling those questionnaires out, 100%. That, to me, those were the signs that there's the kind of commitment that I'm looking for. So suffice to say that we're in now that next phase after the physical. We're in that technical and tactical phase where we get to now apply football. Right? So when we talk about, and you hear me talk about total preparation within our process, we now get to add some football. So now we're going to start to work on the technical and the tactical as it relates to the game of football. We'll do that in this spring phase where we get to have practices and we get to talk about technique and we get to talk about how the units come together, offense, defense, and special teams. And we'll need to have a great attention to detail and great focus. We'll need to have a great attitude. We'll need to be smart in how we do things. And then the final piece of that will be the mental preparation. How we do that consistently at a high level over a longer period of time. So that's kind of where we are right now as we kind of move into spring practice. We get to add the next layer. There's been a lot of physical preparation. Now we get to add the technical and the tactical preparation, but always with building these habits on a day-to-day basis. So I don't want to kind of get too far ahead where I know you want to talk about who's going to be the starting quarterback, who's going to be the mic, who's going to be the boundary corner, I know, and you should be, and I know everybody that is subscribing and everybody wants to know those things, and I'll answer a lot of those questions, but I'm giving you the perspective of what does spring ball mean to me and where we are in that process on a day-to-day basis. And just to give you from 35,000 feet, as I said, on January 4th, we had 39 scholarship players, 39. As I said, on August 4th, when we report our first day, we're going to get to 84. We might not get to 85, but we're going to be at 84. So we'll get the roster back to where it needs to be in very short order. Mid-years, as you know, we took 17. Look, that is not how I will build a program here at LSU year in and year out. But we needed to address that gap that I just mentioned to you. For us to get to 84, this isn't AAA. This is the SEC. So you better have a full roster of really good football players when you show up. You can't have 72 scholarship players, or the guys running down on the field, they're not going to be SEC players. So we had to address it. We did. We've got within there a number of guys, 10 in particular from the state of Louisiana, that are either high school or mid-year transfers that love the state, that wanted to play here, and are coming back to play here. So there had to be a tie, and that tie is real. And, we're excited about that. I think, certainly, the battles themselves, I will say this. Why'd you take this guy? Why'd you take that guy? Here's what we told our group. As we build this roster, our job, my job, is to build competition at every position. If you don't like competition, this isn't the place for you. I came down here because I love competition. So it starts with me, and it's going to run through every position. If competition is not what you like, then there's another school for you. And so at every position, we're going to build it with competition. If you love to compete, LSU's the place for you. Now, we're going to measure that, right, with making sure that there are smart decisions. We're not just going to bring guys in because we want you to compete with 3 number ones at a position. But we feel like any decisions that we made at particular groups, we wanted to up the competition within those groups. So with that, I think we're done, aren't we? Is that the full hour? Damn, I tried to get it as close as I could. That's kind of an overview. I just really wanted to give you a perspective of what spring means to me going into my I think this is my 31st or 32nd spring. And I've won every one of those spring games, by the way, undefeated. Expect to win this one as well. So we'll open it up with questions.
Coach, right in the middle, Michael
Yes,
Cobble from Channel 2. 2 questions. What would be a successful spring for you at the end of this? And then how do you want your staff to teach it? Holistic, part, whole? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think those are good questions. I think first and foremost, I think any coach wants to make sure that first and foremost that you're healthy, right? You don't want any kind of injuries that impact your roster. Having said that, you can't go into a spring practice afraid to compete. We're going to go into it and we're going to compete. We're going to tackle. We're going to do the things that you need to develop, as I mentioned, total preparation in the technical and tactical end of things. But we want to be able to evaluate our football team in a manner that allows us to say, here's who we are going into the summer. Here's our strengths. Here's our weaknesses. I want to expose them in the spring. I don't want to cover them up. I want to know who we are so we can go to work on those when I get into camp in August so I can start addressing those things. So creating situations within the spring so we can address those types of situations. It's whole, part whole in terms of methodology. And I would say, really at the end of the day, the most important thing is how we talk to our kids. Create a positive coaching environment in how we talk to them on a day-to-day basis. That's how you want to leave spring.
Coach Kelly, Garland Gillen, Fox 8 New Orleans. I don't need to know who's the starting quarterback tomorrow, but
I don't know, so I couldn't give you a good answer.
didn't expect that. Your 4 scholarship quarterbacks, will they all be available to throw
Yes.
tomorrow? How do you decide the repetitions that they get each day? How are you going to split up between these 4 scholarship quarterbacks?
Yeah, that's certainly the number one question that should be asked is how do you figure this out? It probably was the one area that I spent more time with Mike and Joe than what concept are we putting in the passing game. We're going to go seniority to start, 1 through 4, first in to last in, and then the next time it might be last in to first in, until we get into a rhythm that allows everybody to get enough reps where you can start to break those out. But you got to give it enough work before you can start parceling them out. I'll give you an example. We start off every practice with a tempo period. It's 12 reps. So A and B are going to split the first group of 6 reps, 3 and 3. C and D are going to split the next 2 at 3 and 3. So every day, right, somebody's going to get 3 and 3. Another group's going to get 3 and 3. It could be different in terms of who that first guy is, but that rotation will happen every day. It'll be similar. We do a 6-4 rotation. Ones get 6, 2s get 4 reps. So it's 10 total reps. Each one of them, in some fashion's got to get some first reps, but it'll be broken up with 4 guys working through 10 reps. And that's how we're looking at it throughout the entire spring.
Hey, Brian, Brody Miller with The Athletic. It's been documented how you were able to convince Miles to come back from the portal. So I guess just could you walk us through what those conversations are like when you then, with him when you then bring Jaden in?
Again, I think we started with we just wanted to add more competition, and that nobody has the starting position. Go earn it. You've worked hard. He's changed his body. He's healthy. Remember when you threw, I think it was 4 touchdown passes against Missouri? You're an outstanding quarterback. Why can't it be you? And the same thing for Nuss, the same thing for Jaden. So I think it's just the inner confidence that they all have in themselves that they can be the starter.
Coach Ed Daniels, WGNO New Orleans.
Hey, Ed.
Nice to see you, Coach.
Thank you, Ed. You too.
Could you take us through the whole Arizona State quarterback thing? Did he contact you? Was there a lot of interest from you? And does his ability to use his feet intrigue you? And do you think you need that in your quarterback in today's college game?
Yeah, Ed. So certainly, once Jaden had made the decision to go into the portal, right, which that starts the whole process, is the young man made that decision to go in the portal. There's discussions, because, we're looking at the portal like, the free agency board, right? The lights go on. There's internal discussions. Is this somebody that we want to bring in? Does he fit our culture? Is this a guy that we think fits the offense? And so there's internal discussions for a couple of days. And to be quite honestly, during those discussions, that's when you'll find out whether there's interest from the other party. And that's when generally somebody's reaching out. So generally that's when somebody's making contact, and contact was made. And then it was up to us to see if we were going to reciprocate. And obviously we did. Now, the second part of your question would be his ability to extend. I think he brings more than extending plays, actually. He was in an offensive structure and system which was really built towards ball control this past year, playing to a very good defense. We think that there's a lot that has not been tapped into with his ability to be a dual threat quarterback. He's got arm talent. He's got a high IQ, and he can run the football. He's a talented runner of the football. He wasn't asked to do that. He was more of an extender of plays. We think that there's much more to it than what he's brought over the last couple of years.
Yeah, Brian, right here, front row.
Yes, sir.
Ron Higgins, the Tiger details. How much did you? I know everybody gets a fresh start, but how much did you or any of your coaches look at last year's film just to see everybody's individual skill set, see what you had to work with? Do you look at much of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we looked at, every game that the guys played last year, and that's important from just what they did well, what they didn't do well, what they can improve on, and then we just put that away and then went to work on where they are right now. And because sometimes, like you said, some guys want a fresh start, but some other guys, want an opportunity to build off of what they did last year. Because quite honestly, you look at some of these guys and they don't have pads on, right? And some look better than the other. And then you look at a guy like Jack Besh who just makes plays. And I'm not saying he doesn't look good, but you watch a Hilton run around, and that young man, he can run all day. And then Jack Besh, what he can do watching him on film. So you want to build off of guys, and you want to let other guys grow at the same time. I think this spring allows us to kind of build on those observations.
On the injury front, Wilson Alexander with the Advocate.
Yes.
Is there anyone who is going to be out for the entire spring, or who might miss the start of practice?
From an injury standpoint, we've got, I would say, Armani Goodwin is going to be back. He's healthy. I mean, I know he's a guy that's been out for a while. I think from a defensive standpoint, I think we look pretty good across the board, other than Major Burns will probably, with his foot, not be available for us for most of the spring. Garrett Dellinger is coming back from shoulder surgery. He won't be available for us. But by and large, it looked like a very, MASH kind of list when I got here. Looks really good, going into the spring in terms of having a number of players available. And, of course, you'll get access on that first day to kind of, pull out your sheets and check off the numbers. So I'm sure you'll report back to me moving forward who I missed, because I don't pay attention to that stuff. So you'll tell me why wasn't somebody out there. So we'll play that game after the first practice.
Hey, Coach. Lon Phillips Sullivan from LSUOdyssey.com.
Yes.
You just barely mentioned Jack Besh. You offered him very early in his recruitment. He went on a visit with you and to South Bend
Yes,
a few
sir.
years back. What excites you most about coaching a player like Jack?
I'd say first and foremost, his confidence level is his mental, approach to the game is like a senior. He just has, he understands the difference between, a preparation mindset and a performance mindset. Like when he prepares, he knows how to prepare, but when it's time to perform, it's a totally different level. That's a rare attribute, and you don't see it a lot. I've seen it in only some high-level NFL guys that have played for me. It's a unique trait that he has. And like I said, if he walks in here, you're like, well, he must be a reporter. It was a joke. I got a couple of laughs. Kelly offended the entire reporting crew when he got there. But he just, you know what I mean? He just has that ability. And he's a really fine athlete, too.
Coach, here on your right, Shea Dixon with 24/7. For many years, spring ball had started in early March, and then the school went on spring break, and then they picked up. What was the benefit, or what is the benefit of waiting and just going right through all 15 practices?
Well, there's not necessarily a benefit in terms of extending. We would have benefited more in terms of extending the calendar. We weren't prepared to practice. So we needed more time with our guys. We needed more conditioning elements with our football team. Just frankly, just needed more time with them. So what you'll see is, like next year, we'll go before spring break so we can extend, because you don't have to count the break as countable days when you extend that way. So there is no real benefit other than we weren't prepared yet, in my eyes. We needed more time in the weight room. We needed more time developing some of the things that I talked about earlier before we jumped into practices.
Brody Miller at The Athletic. Obviously it was a complicated situation with John Emery last year. I guess, do you know yet if he's going to be able to go this season, and kind of also just what you've seen from him this winter?
Yeah, so if they're out there on the practice field, here's what I'm going to tell you. They've passed a robust test of consistency with academics and a day-to-day accountability. Other than that, I can't tell you that he's getting all A's and he's going to be eligible and he's going to be a starter, but he is making the positive progress that we had put him. He's above the line. The standards that we've set for him, he's meeting them. And there's a number of guys that I didn't think would make it, and I'm not saying he's in that. They have exceeded my expectations.
Brian, you're right. Matt Moscona with ESPN Radio.
Yep.
You talked about the numbers a little bit ago. You said you'll be at 84 come August. Where are you now, and are there still specific positions that you and your staff feel like you need to address?
Yeah, I think our depth situation at tight end is a concern of mine. I think that's an area that we need to continue to build on, and I'm not sure that it's a quick fix. I think it's something that we're still going to have to look at. And there may be some people that are on our roster that might have to change positions and play that position. We're going to have to address it one way or the other. So it's still a concern. There might be some movement there in the transfer portal after spring ball, but it is a concern. We're not done on the offensive line. That's still an area that we're actively involved in as well. So I would leave it at those two areas in particular.
Hey, Coach, Jacques Doucet, WAFB-TV. Do you like the way you've addressed the cornerback position in terms of replenishing it with the transfer portal, and can you speak on those guys that are coming in?
I do. I think that, I think Jarrett, first of all, quality human being, great leader. I mean, he's come in and you guys are going to get to me on this. I know when I talk about traits and talent, and I'm talking about, I want both, right? I know we're not going to win the SEC because we've got a bunch of really, great kids, okay? They got to be great players too, okay? They got to have both, but he's got both. I mean, this is a first team, Big 12 corner, and he's got traits. He's a leader, great student. So, I'm really pleased with him. And then Mekhi Garner he's an NFL player. I mean, he's long, he's athletic. He's been impressive. And his film backs it up. If you watch some of his Texas film, he plays big. He plays long. Demarius and Ray, I mean, those guys are been in the program, but they've been nicked up a little bit, and they got to really come on this spring. But to have those guys that we know were in the program, that's a better situation now to have those four corners, and we've got some freshmen coming in. So we're in a much better position to go into an SEC situation where now Matt has some flexibility within our defensive structure that if we want to play some press, we can certainly do that.
Hey, Coach, Glenn West with LSU Country right here. You touched on the high transfer numbers that you guys brought in. Just what do you like about that group as a whole? Obviously, a lot of these guys are from Louisiana and kind of have that background. Just what have you seen from them, maybe from a leadership standpoint, since they got to campus?
Well, I think there were some certain things that we were looking for. So there was positional need, right? So we were looking at positional need. We wanted guys that wanted to be at LSU, that wanted to be part of bringing LSU back to a championship level, right? And that was a single-minded focus, It wasn't, hey, I didn't get my due, and I got this and I got that at the other place. No, I want to go to LSU and I want to win a national championship. So they had to have the right mindset. They had to be thinking right about the transfer. Positional need, Louisiana, and then they had to have something that really attracted to me, and that was recommendations from others that they were leaders, and they've all proven to be that so far.
Coach T-Bob Hebert, ESPN Radio. In an earlier press conference, you were talking about offensive line and how kind of fundamentally believe it's a development position. And so when you're trying to affect a year one turnaround and you have so many question marks of that group, how are you looking to, what's your approach?
Well, we brought in 2 transfers. We're recruiting another player at that position right now. So 3 veteran players, plus I believe that there are players on this roster that will develop in time before we play our first game against Florida State that will change that narrative in terms of where we were back in, February when we had that conversation. So, and that's our job, right? I mean, to change these conversations from when we first have them to where they are. Now, your eyes will tell me that. Like, you'll get a chance to watch practice and go, that guy don't know what he's talking about. They still stink. Or, you know what, they look like they're improving. And so, I think we've made the progress, with bringing in some transfers. And I also think that the players that we have physically developed since January have changed their bodies. And that's the next stage of that development as well.
Coach, Glenn Gilbo with Outkick.com. What is Frank Wilson's status on your staff with regard to the lawsuit? And were you able to find out about his previous recruiting reprimand when he was here before?
Yeah, so we know of no lawsuit that has been filed regarding those allegations that were made. So his status here has unchanged, and we consider those as being egregious and simply allegations that were unfounded. So it does not affect Frank Wilson and the person that we know, and we stand behind him firmly as a member of our staff. And that is regarding the recruiting violations. Those I can't comment on, as you know, because we are still currently going through that process with the investigation.
Coach Mike Scarborough with TigerBait.com. It's been the first time you've had a new strength coach in around here in several decades. Can you
Yes.
talk about how the players have react to Coach Flint in the 3 or 4 months that they've been here? What improvements have you seen? What has been their feedback to him?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to ask the players when you get a chance, and we'll have players available to you. I think it's a great question. I always like, for you guys to ask those kind of questions to the players and be transparent with them. But the feedback that I've been getting from our leadership, from our guys that are SWAT team leaders, they look forward to coming to work every day. And that's what you're trying to create, right? An environment where the guys are excited to come to work. And I think that that's why there's been a consistency with this group. They want to come to work because it's they're seeing changes in their body. They're seeing changes in the way they do things on a day-to-day basis. And I think they love the interaction with the staff. And so I think you'll get a better sense from those guys. But what I'm getting in the feedback, that there's a great energy in the group, and they can really see changes on a day-to-day basis.
Charles Hannegriff, ESPN Radio. When you talked about the personal wellness update that they're filling out every day, could you go into a little bit more detail on that? And are you using that as a baseline for their preparedness?
It's really about, trying to build strong habits, and so this consistency of approach is one where it's really important to me. It's, to do it once in a while is not really going to affect change. It's your consistency of approach. It's the constant application that I'm looking at. And so filling out this wellness questionnaire is important. Don't get me wrong. But this, constant application creates great habits, which is what we're looking for on a day-to-day basis. We want our guys to have great habits. And where do you see that? They don't jump offside. They make good decisions. They're on time. They're not going to have foolish mistakes and penalties. And it goes to winning. When people ask me, what do you know about winning? I talk about good habits. And so they're all intertwined in some fashion.
Coach, could you give us an update on Kayshawn? Just your relationship with him, what you've seen out of him, et cetera, and his health, of course.
We're in the process of building a relationship. I would say I know his last name right now. And I say that only because we're in that process of he's re-engaging. He's been injured. He's had a second surgery, but we're getting more acquainted every day. Look, he's a great player. He's a good kid, but this has been a rough spot for him. And what happens is you tend to get distracted because you're not involved in everything. But he's learning you got to be involved in everything, whether you're injured or not. And that's a process that he's going through, and we're seeing some really good changes. We had a nice conversation in the training room this morning where he's on top of his academics, and he's making good progress. But the good part about it is the surgery was successful. He's making good progress. He's in a walking boot right now. And that's really the most important thing. The rest of the stuff, we'll work it out between the two of us. I'm not that hard-headed. He's a good player. All right, thank you.